baseline for what this sort of action costs in an efficient manner so that it's, the applicant can be sure that this is a fair amount. But it is a contribution from the applicant since the city doesn't have a fee program per se. So we're being pragmatic. The money would be sequestered into a pot that would be spent towards either a standalone project or adding on to another project so we can get that nice long run and some real visual impacts.
Okay, thank you, because I know we've run into that before with the properties, you know, with one pole or two poles, and the ability to underground that short distance has been an issue for a lot of applicants.
Yes, we do have some key projects on within the Broadway plan in Highway 29, and they do have an underground requirement, and so there are opportunities ongoing for us to be able to add on to that to get a real impact.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Mohammed.
So you said this is the simplest project you've ever presented. This is the most detailed attachments I've ever read. So I totally appreciate your work. So I have two questions. The first one, which I asked you yesterday, who would the renewable energy benefit?
Well, unfortunately, right now, PG&E does not, or the state doesn't allow us to designate or send that power to a specific building and/or project. We're required to basically put it into the grid, and then it is distributed from there. So I would love to be able to designate it, but we're just not permitted to do that.
Okay, then my second question is how many boats or RVs are you projected to store?
We have spaces for 253, and if life goes well, we'll have 253.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions by the commissioners? No other questions. At this time, I open public hearing for this.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Hess. At this time, I open public hearing or public comment for this particular agenda item. Any in-person comments?
No, I'm just kidding.
Going once, going twice. Nicole, anything on Zoom?
Yes, we have Karen Fritz. Ms. Fritz, I will ask you to unmute your microphone, please.
There we go. Good evening. I would just like to say that I think this project is greatly needed in this area, as anyone that has an RV has a difficult time in finding anywhere to put it. So kudos to you, Mr. Hess, for coming up with such a great idea and double feature with the solar panels. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fritz. Any other comments via Zoom?
Is there anyone else on Zoom who would like to speak? Please raise your hand now. Nobody's raising their hand.
Yeah, fine, perfect.
Thank you, Nicole. At this time, I close public hearing. Commissioners, at this time, I entertain a motion, if any.
I'll make a motion that we approve a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of American Canyon approving a design permit for development of a 3-megawatt solar utility facility with accessory boat and recreational vehicle storage on a 6.68 acre site at 5381 Broadway in the Light Industrial Zoning District, APNs 057-130-029, -031, -032, and -033, file number PL23-0002.
I will
Commissioner-
second.
Oh, Commissioner Altman, could I suggest one slight amendment to your motion, and that is to accept the modified condition
yes.
related to
Yes.
the utility undergrounding?
Yes, thank you. The modified resolution with the new comments relative to the undergrounding of utilities.
And I'll still second.
Nicole, roll call, please.
Yes. Commissioner Altman,
Aye.
Commissioner Goff,
Aye.
Commissioner Mohammed,
Aye.
Chair Malaria is absent, Vice Chair Cruz.
Aye. Okay, moving on to the second public hearing. This will be in regards to Napa Valley Ruins and Gardens Hotel and Condominiums vesting tentative subdivision map. And before we do so, are there any disclosures from the commission? All right. There being none, Mr. William He will provide a presentation.
Going. Thanks. All right. Good evening, Planning Commission and members of the public. Happy to be here today to give a presentation to the Napa Valley Ruins and Garden Hotel and Condos subdivision map. This is actually a follow-up to the design permit that was approved by the Planning Commission in, I think it was January of this year. The location is shown in the Watson Ranch specific plan area. In red here, it's lots 16 and 17, and it is kind of north of the village, not the village, the Vintage Ranch subdivision and south of the Harvest subdivision. The site is approximately 17.98 acres, and it's within the mixed-use zone. So the design of the condos and the hotel was approved previously, and the application is to subdivide the 2 lots into 14 lots for condominium purposes. Here is the site plan overall. The hotel in the top left side will be lot 1, and then there will be, I think it's 2 lots for the branded homes, and then the parking lot is to the south. The application complies with the findings required for the subdivision maps. There's only one issue about this map overall, and that is the maintenance. And we talked with the applicant and property owner. The condos will form a maintenance association to maintain all the access roads, private utilities, and other private improvements. And most likely the HOA or the maintenance association will be part of an association that includes the hotel. Prior to I think the issuance of the site improvement plan, the applicant will provide a draft of this HOA maintenance agreement. And that's it. The public outreach is similar to the previous project. On February 13th, we posted the project on a website. We had our friendly neighborhood letters sent to neighbors within 300 feet. And this also went out to the Gov delivery recipients. And then on July 12th, we did our required noticing to the property owners, and also did a newspaper publishing for the Vallejo Times-Herald. Staff report was published on the 21st, and there was a reminder that went out on the 25th. Staff did receive 7 comments, public comments about these, and staff had provided responses directly to the commentors with the applicant copied. That's it for this one. Staff's recommendation is to recommend approval of the hotel and condos vesting tentative map. This project needs to be approved by the City Council, so the Planning Commission's role is to recommend approval. And for CEQA, this project is consistent with the Watson Ranch specific plan EIR, which includes mitigation measures that is part of the resolution. I'll be here if you have any questions. The applicant is here as well, and that's it for me.
Thank you, William. At this time, I open comment to the applicant.
You really want to comment on this one?
Not really. Good evening, Commissioners. Terrence McGrath, Watson Ranch, owner of this particular property here. I just thank you, William, by the way, and thank you, city staff. And where's Will? He's here someplace. Oh, there's Will. CBG. Simply, this is just creating flexibility to what's already approved. But William did make a comment about the HOA. Obviously, the HOA governing Watson Ranch and the HOA for the hotel and ruins will be completely separate. And you just can't mix those two things. And William did point that out, but I wanted to let you know that basically the hotel and ruins both of those are essentially private. And so all of that will be done privately. But thank you. I'm available for any questions or comments.
Thank you, Terry. All right, so I open this questions to the commissioners for Mr. McGrath and or William. Commissioners. Commissioner Goff.
I'm just curious about the lot sizes. I was just looking at it, and depending on, there's 3 condos in one, 5 in another. I'm just curious on how that came into being.
Will, you want to take this one on, or want me to? It's a relatively complicated site, going from actually 2 lots to.
Hey, I'm Will Carlson from CBG, Civil Engineers and Surveyors. So the reason that we're putting multiple lots is basically for development purposes and for future mapping. The additional lots help us for construction phasing and also for handover to DRE in the future. So it just gives us more flexibility depending on if it's a 1-phase or 2-phase project and the timing.
Same thing, like if you look at the reason we put a separate parking or a separate lot under the parking lot is just because of all kinds of shared parking and everything else going on. And so part of this is we've gotten deeper and deeper in the project. You can't have enough lots. And so there's really no magic, to answer your question, there's really no magic to size, because in the end we will still be doing specific lot adjustments per sizes once we actually get everything nailed down.
Any other comments from the commissioners? There being none.
Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I open public comment. Are there any comments from the public here? There being none. Anything on Zoom, Nicole?
Yes, we have Chester. I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself now.
Yes. I have a question about the future housing in terms of those homes or properties getting home insurance. As you've heard in the news, a lot of properties in California, new homes, aren't getting home insurance. So what assurances do we have that these new places will be able to get some insurance?
I cannot guarantee that there'll be third-party insurers in the state of California insuring homes, but I'm pretty certain that at some point, the state of California will step in if we can't find any outside insurers to insure homes. That said, the city of American Canyon is blessed with a very low fuel situation. So unlike other parts of the wine country where they built a lot of very expensive homes in places they probably should never have built these homes, that's not the case in American Canyon. But thank you for your question.
Mr. Chairman, I'd also add that the fire agency that would provide prevention and suppression services to the project area is the American Canyon Fire Protection District, and it's recently completed an analysis by the Insurance Services Organization, which all fire agencies are required to participate in on a periodic basis. The numbers go from 1 to 8, and the American Canyon Fire Protection District has a ISO rating of 2, which is, you know, in terms of fire agencies, number 1 is the best. I think in the state of California there are 12, but that rating is a good indication of a basis for insurance or underwriting decisions. I think that is important for the record and in response to this question.
Mr. Ross makes a very good point about the rating. We are also in discussions with the fire department to something that will come probably online in the next 6 months to a year that we've been working on specifically with the fire department to potentially move it from a 2 to a 1.
Great. Thank you, Attorney Ross and Mr. McGrath. Mr. Randall, hope that answered your question. Thank you very much for chiming in.
Actually, Vice Chair, Mr. Randall has raised his hand again.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Randall, please proceed.
I've asked you to unmute yourself, Mr. Randall.
It's my wife who has a question, Julie Kennedy.
Hi, this development, I'd like to know how close it is going to be to the properties that are on the backside of Vintage Ranch on Cantada Way. How far up the south end of this development will be to Cantada Way?
My best guess is we're probably at least 200 feet and could be greater than 300 feet off the northern fence line of Vintage Ranch. And Will Carlson from CBG right now is using his magic finger to give a quick estimate. What do you think it is, Will? 300 feet or so. It's 300 feet.
And you're on the opposite side of the hill.
Yeah, we're on the north side, downward facing slope of the hill. So just think of it this way. The fence at Vintage Ranch sits at about 135, Will? 125? 125 feet of elevation. Top of hill sits at 175. And then the private branded residences sitting on the north side of the hill will sit at about 145, 150. And they'll be over 300 feet away from the northern fence line of Vintage Ranch. Thank you for your question.
Thank you, Mr. McGrath. I believe Julie and Chester, I believe that 3-minute time frame is up. Thank you for your question.
Is there anybody else on Zoom who has questions regarding this item or comments? Nobody is raising their hand.
Thank you, Nicole. At this time, I close public comments. At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion. Commissioners.
I recommend a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of American Canyon, California, recommending the City Council of the City of American Canyon approve a vesting tentative subdivision map for the Napa Valley Ruins and Gardens Hotel and Condominiums to subdivide a 17.98 acre site into 14 lots for condominium purposes in the Watson Ranch Specific Plan Mixed-Use Zoning District, APN 059-430-020 and 059-430-021. File number PL23-0007.
I will second that motion.
Nicole, roll call, please.
Yes, Commissioner Altman,
Aye.
Commissioner Goff,
Aye.
Commissioner Mohammed,
Aye.
Chair Malaria is absent, Vice Chair Cruz.
Aye. Okay, moving on to our third public hearing will be the Promontory Subdivision Design Permit and Vesting Tentative Subdivision Map. And before we go and do so, are there any disclosures from the commission? Okay, there being none, Mr. William He, your presentation, sir.
All right, I got it the third time. All right. Good evening, planning commissioners and members of the public. I'm here to give a presentation today on the Promontory Subdivision Design Permit and Vesting Tentative Map. This is a longer presentation, so I want to set an agenda. We'll go over the location map and the site, the planning and zoning information. Then I have a few site photos for the group. I'll take a look at the site plan with everyone, and I think there's about 7 site-specific issues. So we'll go over them in detail together. So to begin, this site is the part of the Watson Ranch that's owned actually by the Newell family. So Watson Ranch is, the ownership is divided into 2 groups, AC1, which owns 252 acres, and the Newell family owns 57 acres, which is shown in the map here on the east side, for the total of 309 acres. Here's my map again, similar to the one previously, and here is the Promontory subdivision, which is shown in red, which is a triangular site. It's going to be directly east of the Harvest subdivision, as well as east of the MVRG Hotel. Project description. The site is made up of, has parcels in 3 separate zones, the medium density residential 12, medium density residential 16, and park zoning. The 56.9 acre site is split into 2 groups, which is we're going to call the north parcels and the south parcels. The northern parcel has all of the single-family homes, and the southern parcel has a park parcel, which I'll get into more in later slides. So the project consists of 216 single-family homes, and within those there will be an addition of 54 junior accessory dwelling units. The JDUs, the junior accessory dwelling units, will be deed restricted to be affordable. They will be affordable in that 27 of them will be very low income, and then the other 27 will be low income. The site also has approximately 3.77 acres of parkland dedication and 8 new streets, and approximately half a mile of the Napa Valley Vine Trail, which is going to be on the west side of the project. So let's take a look at the first parcel, the bigger parcel, which is the northern parcel. So here is the site. North is to the right side of the screen. The homes are in the dead center, and there will be 2 bioretention bins on the orient myself. So it's going to be the northwest and southwest. And the main entry is going to be on the future extension of Newell Drive. There will be 1 emergency vehicle access, EVA, which is going to be for fire access only, and it's on this southern side here. It's going to be called Parcel C. So that's the gist of the northern parcel. Most of the homes are here, the streets, actually all the homes are here, the streets, and 2 basins and the main access. The southern parcel is made up of 3 pieces. Parcel H, which has a basin, Parcel G, which will be dedicated as parkland, and about 1.3 or 1.5 acres dedicated for future extension of Newell Drive. So no houses in the southern parcel. But these two parcels make up that 56 acre piece. I do have some pictures. I guess is Terry gone? I stole some pictures from him because he has some drone shots of the site. So here is a photo from Harvest facing east, and here is kind of like the southern and the middle parcel together. As you can see, it's vacant at this moment. Here's kind of like a little rotation. This is more of the northern parcel. This is Harvest right here. If this, the street here is Rio Del Mar, and this is Malin Way at this east side. So undeveloped. And I went there actually this morning, and this is how the site looks today. That's the gist of the project overall. Let's move on to some site-specific issues. The first one is the Watson Ranch Specific Plan Amendment. The amendment, the Planning Commission recommended approval in the last meeting, May of 2023, and the main thing is that some of the zones have been moved over. The proposed site will be MDR 12 and 16, and then that southern parcel will be all park. If this project gets approved today, then it will be scheduled for city council approval in, I think it's August 15th. Site-specific issue number 2 is inclusionary housing, and I kind of hinted at this when I was talking about the project description. The municipal code requires any subdivisions that have more than 5 homes to provide 10% of its units as affordable. So the applicant, in using the JDUs, 54 of them, is providing approximately 25% of these additional units to be affordable. So their 27 will be low income, 27 will be very low income, and as a condition of approval, the applicant will provide what we call a declaration of restrictive covenant agreement prior to the building permits. He's gonna, the applicant will work with our city attorney on the language of that stuff to make sure that the deed gets together. Issue number 3 is the parks dedication. So the every new home that's developed is required to pay a park fee or dedication of land. And so of the 216 single-family homes, there's this calculation. It generates about 754 people. And the Muni Code requires 5 acres per 1,000 new residents, and the math works out to 3.77 acres of required dedication. So the applicant is dedicating that through parcel G in the southern parcel. However, the southern parcel is 6.44 acres, so they have a remainder of 2.66, which they want to give. They volunteered to dedicate in lieu of paying our civic facilities fees, and that's approximately $1,663 per unit, or about $359,000. So that's mentioned in the condition of approval. Architecture, I have a couple slides about this. 2-story single-family homes, they have options from 3 to 5 bedrooms. All of their homes have 2-car garages. They have 2 sets of floor plans. One is what they call the N1 lots, which are, I think it's like the 43 by 70. And then the bigger lots are the N2 lots, 50 by 80. And they range from 2,200 to 3,100 square foot homes with 3 to 5 bedroom options. Each of these homes will have a 6-foot neighbor fence, and there's front yard landscaping. And in accordance with the Watson Ranch specific plan, enhanced aesthetic wrapping will be required for corner lots and lots next to open space. So here's a picture of one of their designs. I think this one is the traditional. It's very familiar design to be consistent with the Artisan and Harvest subdivisions. I believe the architecture firm KTGY did the same, was the same architecture firm for Artisan, so similar product. And here, this one is, I think, farmhouse. I do want to show some examples of their JDU floor plan. So on the left is the N1 floor plan, and shown in the yellow square, that's where the junior unit will be on the first floor. And then on the right, it's from their N2 plan, that's where the option for a JDU unit will be. So they have started to think about how to place these units in their single-family homes. The next issue is Newell Drive views. One of the requirements for the Watson Ranch specific plan is that there should be a screen wall next to developments that are next to public right-of-way. However, if you look at this section here, to the right is Newell Drive, and then the nearest house is approximately 66 feet away, and there's a big dip due to the geography of the site. And within this dip area, the applicant is providing landscaping and trees. And so the landscaping kind of serves as a screen, and they will not provide that extra fence. They will still have a fence here for the houses, and staff is requiring a kind of like a safety barrier fence that's going to be in the Newell Drive area, similar to what Newell Drive has today. Here is their landscaping plan. So the landscaping plan, and here on the bottom, which is actually east, that's where the rows of trees will be. So there will be Newell Drive, the landscaping, and then it becomes the promontory subdivision from there. The basins will have a proximity with landscape and also trees. And I want to point out that they've already started to look at which homes will have that enhanced aesthetic wrapping, which is shown with this orange barrier here. So they've already kind of looked at the homes here facing in the north, in the west, facing the open space, will have that enhanced aesthetic, same as all the homes that's going to be facing Newell Drive. Here are the trees that they're planning for the subdivision. Some of our usual suspects: Chinese pistache, London plane, crepe myrtle, linden. The linden leaf is going to be part of that screen tree. The linden leaf and the paper bark. And I think each home will have a minimum of one tree to start with in their front yard. I think some of the bigger lots will have two. The next issue is the Napa Valley Vine Trail extension. So the Vine Trail is kind of shown here on the west side, because north is on the right of the screen, and it's right along this. I think it's a gas line here, but so it's on the west side here, and you can get to it through the roads along the basins. So there's paved roads along Basin A and paved roads along Basin B, and that's where you can get to the Napa Valley Vine Trail. It's about half a mile there. And then this last issue is about fire safety. So according to the fire district, homes that have subdivisions that have more than, I think, 200 homes are required of secondary access. And so right now they will have their access from Newell Drive, and then they have an emergency EVA. But if they have more than 200, the applicant will have to provide a truly secondary access. And they are One of the concerns is they don't know when this Lot 5 to the north is going to be built. So if it's built, they will have an access through Lot 5, but if it's not built in the time of the 200th home, then they will make an access through some of these homes here, is shown in red. So that is a condition of approval that the applicant has agreed upon. And that's about it. The public outreach process, we started on May 4th, published on our website as well as neighborhood letters, about 300 feet. I think this one went 500 feet, just because they wanted to make sure there were more people to see this. But yeah, yeah, these big lots. I think this, but I'll double check, but it was at least 300. And then we went with the Gov Delivery recipients, 3,800 so far. And then in July 12th, we did our required noticing. July 14th, it was published in the paper. July 21st, went out to the website. And then July 25th with a reminder. We had 7 comments during the public outreach period, and staff responded to those comments with the applicant copied. So we do have some modifications for this too. The applicant reached out to us. I think it was after the publishing, so it was, I think it was like Tuesday or Wednesday. It took us some time to review what the suggestions were, and we were able to accommodate some of the revisions that were requested. So for the design permit, condition 13, there was a modification to say 27 and 27. That was my fault. I divided 54 and somehow I got 26, which is incorrect. So that's a typo. And then so the enhanced lots, the condition 14, they wanted to take the extra step. In addition to the map, they listed all the lots there in the condition, so that was helpful. And then condition 16 changed the timing of, so the fences, we wanted them to add a, I'm sorry, what, there was a fence condition and it was set prior to building permit, but it's, we were okay with it going to prior to occupancy. So for the tentative map, there are minor corrections to conditions 10, 11, 19, 48, 64, 70, and 74. And then condition 19, I reviewed that with you previously, is to get the wording of that 200th single-family home corrected. Condition 66L is to announce the Vine Trail condition. This was actually in their plans, but we just wanted to make sure that it was in the conditions of approval as well, and so that was added in. Condition 66M, which will be the additional safety barrier on Newell Drive. So it's a precaution, make sure that they remember to add that in. And then the condition 70 addresses the dedication of the park. And then condition 72 is a condition that was added by the applicant just to clarify how they will record their financing map, to allow for them to record it in phases. So that's why it's a few modifications, but I have those provided to you in paper as well. So staff's recommendation and CEQA determination. So this one, part of the Watson Ranch specific plan, so it is consistent with the Watson Ranch final EIR. And staff's recommendation is to, it's actually 2 actions tonight. For the design permit, to approve it with the modifications as recommended by staff. And then for the tentative map, recommend approval of the promontory vesting tentative map with modifications recommended by staff. It's a mouthful, but that's the project. The applicant is here, as well as I think some of the owners, and I'll be here if you have any questions.
Great, thank you, William. And I'd like to invite the applicant.
Thank you for having us tonight, Planning Commissioners. I hope everybody's having a wonderful evening, and thank you for making the meetings go so quickly. I don't think I've ever been in a public hearing where the third item up, we were only an hour into the meeting. It was amazing. I also wanted to thank staff. They've been extremely professional and responsive. This is probably the fastest tentative map that I've ever worked on as far as how fast we've been able to process through issues. And there have been issues like any project, and they've been great to work with. And we're here to answer any questions you might have. Our design team's here, our architect with KTGY, and Will Carlson again with CBG, who's a civil engineer on the project. But again, we're thankful for your consideration tonight, and if you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to ask.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, your questions. Commissioner Mohammed.
Okay, so I have two questions. Thank you for being here and presenting this to us. The first one is the deed restrictions for the junior ADUs. Do they have to be rented out, or can?
No, they don't. So California law is a little tricky. You can't force somebody to rent out part of their house. So usually how the deed restriction is written, it says if you elect to rent it out, then you're subject to the restrictive covenant. So we'll work. We have some examples from other projects. I asked staff if they had a standard form or if they would like us to provide one for review. They said, please provide one, so we'll do that. And we'll, hopefully before the city council, we'll be able to provide them an exhibit so they can attach that to the staff report so people can actually see what that restrictive covenant looks like.
Okay, perfect. And then the second question is the condition of approval number 19. The ingress, is that just for EVA access only, or is that a second entrance and exit?
For the 200 permit, that's meant to be, the examples you showed were meant to be temporary. So we've been talking to AC1 and Terry about Lot 5, which is adjacent to us, and what is not really shown on the 2D screen is that there's a lot of topography right on the property line. So we've been trying to talk to Terry about how do we coordinate grading on that area, because right now it's kind of like a hill. So if we grade on our side, it's going to be a little awkward. So we're trying to see if we could maybe grade a larger area onto his property to provide a temporary access, a secondary temporary access until Lot 5 develops. Eventually, when Lot 5 develops, our two projects are designed to interconnect. So there will be an ultimate connection through there, but we don't know what the timing is for Lot 5. We think it's probably going to be within the time period of the construction of the Promontory subdivision. So that's why we suggested if we can just have some time, maybe come up with a temporary solution, it will be more efficient to design it all at once instead of somebody doing it and then having to, rip things out and redo it at a later date.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions by the commissioners? None.
No, I've got one.
Commissioner Goff.
Thank you. Have you done the junior ADUs and other projects?
Correct, yes.
Been well received? 'Cause
Very well
it's
received.
new to us, and I'm just.
They've been extremely well received. In fact, in several projects in KT2 as our architecting, I think in one in Pleasant Hill, we had designed the project, I think with like 11 JADUs to start with out of about a 44 unit project. And as the builder went into the sales process, they were so well received, they actually asked, can we add more JADUs to the project? So in that one, the issue was it was a tighter site, and each one of the units that had a JADU had a separate designated guest parking stall. So in that project, the parking was maybe a little bit of a constraint. Here, I don't think parking is going to be a constraint because we've designed the project. They're public streets. There's going to be plenty of parking on the streets. All the houses have 2-car garages, plus they can put 2 cars in the driveway apron. So if there's more demand, let's say, and 25% is not enough, the way that we've designed the subdivision, pretty much any house can fit on any lot. So we just chose 25% as a starting point, but that could increase to 30% or 35% if there's demand.
I'm just, and this isn't necessarily for you, I'm just curious on how the state feels, because the requirement of the 10% for the low or the very low income, and the workaround that you guys are doing, while it fits the law. I don't know if it fits necessarily the nature of what the desire for housing is. So that's just me.
Well, if I could comment on that. So the HCD, which is the Housing and Community Development Department, they have a pamphlet on ADUs and JADUs, and they actually talk about that ADUs and JADUs are one of the big tools that they anticipate being utilized to help support the creation of affordable housing. And a different project that I worked on in Pleasant Hill, which was subject to the Surplus Lands Act, which is under the oversight of HCD, we did this exact same thing. The restrictive covenant was reviewed by HCD, and they thought it was a great idea to, in that case, I think we had to meet a minimum of 15% requirement under the Surplus Lands Act. And so we did that, exceeded it, and HCD was very happy with that as a solution.
Okay, thank you for that. My other comment, just because it's me, I noticed 6-foot good neighbor fences. We should move that up a little bit. Just thinking that standard was put in place when? Because I think, there's more and more of us over that mark that can see everything that's going on in your backyard. Just a thought. And then you answered my second access. My other comment was on the Vine Trail, but my understanding is as we get closer to that, we'll get more information on what the Vine Trail is going to look like through there. Okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
Commissioner Allman?
I've got just a couple of follow-ups. I'll start on the Vine Trail, and this is sort of a comment question, but I'm assuming that this portion of the Vine Trail will be connected to other portions of the Vine Trail so that it becomes a single.
That's our understanding as well, yes, I would hope so. I live in Danville. We have what's called the Iron Horse Trail, which is a very similar idea. I can tell you it is probably the most utilized public amenity, more so than any of the parks or anything else. If you go there on the weekend, it's just absolutely, packed with people riding their bikes, walking their dogs. So I think that the Vine Trail is a great idea.
Cool. That was first. Second, I couldn't tell, although I'm again fairly confident, the JADUs, they have a separate entrance.
Correct. They have a separate entrance from the exterior of the house. They also have, sometimes they're referred to as lock-off units. So they're designed to have a separate entrance to the interior of the house and to the exterior. So let's say that you're gonna actually rent it out and it's somebody not in your household and they want complete privacy, you can lock off the JADU from the rest of the house so that they have privacy. Now, let's say it's your adult child who is suffering, and can't find a job after they come back from college, which is totally unheard of, but let's just say that happens. And they need a place to live. Well, in that case, it might be that you want both those options, right? So they're not separated from the rest of the household, but if they come back from, their friend's house at 1 o'clock in the morning, they can enter through their own door and not wake everybody up.
Gotcha. And I'm guessing that you're a dad of a...
I am luckily not that old yet. Yeah, my oldest daughter's only starting high school, so she won't be moving back in for another 7 or 8 years.
Got
yeah.
it. Yeah, she's got to leave first. That was pretty much what I just wanted to verify and clarify. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I have no questions. Any other questions from the commissioners? Okay, at this time, I open public comment. Any in-person public comment?
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm not here as an elected official this evening. I'm here as a citizen of American Canyon. And I really appreciate all the work that has been done with the projects presented this evening. With respect to the ADUs, junior ADUs, I believe it was Lennar did a number of them on the south end of Mare Island a few years ago. And the concept was you can rent out the junior ADU while you're occupying the main house, and you have some income, probably helps pay with the mortgage. When you're an empty nester, you move into the junior ADU, you rent out the big part of the house. Or maybe it's just a situation where extended family and you need housing for those who are relocating or something to that effect. So I think it's a great concept, and I appreciate the work done on it. Look forward to hearing more about it and seeing projects move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Garcia. Any other public comment? Anything on Zoom, Nicole?
Excuse me, I'm not here as the mayor tonight. I'm a member of
sorry.
the public.
Mr. Leon Garcia, thank you.
Thank you, that works.
Yes, we have two people on Zoom. I'm going to go in the order that I believe they raised their hands. So we have Carlotta Santino. I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself.
Hi, can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great, thank you. Hi, this is Carlota Sainato with the Napa County Bicycle Coalition. Thank you for the presentation, for the opportunity to provide comment. I'll try to go through this quickly. There's a few points I want to talk about in terms of bike and pedestrian access in this area and as part of this project. My first question is if there is a way to include a more direct connection to the Vine Trail around Basin B, maybe closer to the south side, closer to the entrance from the street. Having connections on both ends would be great. It's just, it would be more direct, and that encourages more folks to walk and bike if they don't have to go all the way around the basin. Second question is if there's an opportunity to include bicyclist and pedestrian path connections that would connect the cul-de-sac and loop streets to Newell Drive to encourage more walking and biking. Again, that would provide a more direct route. People don't have to go all the way around to get to Newell Drive. And it can be bike pedestrian only, so it's not a concern about like vehicle traffic flow. That would be cutting across parcels A and B to those kind of cul-de-sac and loop streets. But the main concerns that I wanted to talk about was looking at the Newell Drive and Rio Del Mar cross-section designs. They have fairly wide medians and travel lanes. Newell Drive only has 5-foot traditional bike lanes, and given the volumes and speeds that we have now on Newell Drive and that are anticipated given the extension and the connection to other roads being used as a bypass for the highway, Class 2 bike lanes will definitely be high stress on this road and will not be appropriate. We ask that moving forward on this, that the city consider looking at the designs for Rio Del Mar and especially for Newell Drive to see what can be done about putting in protected bike lanes. 13 to 12-foot travel lanes will encourage speeding, and changing them to 11 feet can reduce speeding and create more space for protected bike lanes. Really, we are seeing that having that vertical separation for bike lanes on streets that are arterials and collectors.
Please wrap
like
up your
Newell Drive
comments.
and Rio Del Mar makes a big difference in terms of usability by all users. So I think wrapping it up, given the time it's been since the Watson Ranch specific plan was passed, given concerns around climate change and public health, we ask that the city consider looking at protected bike lanes for those streets. Thank you.
And thank you for your comment, Ms. Sanato.
Okay, next we have Chester Rendell. Mr. Rendell, please unmute yourself.
Yeah, I had a question about the front landscaping for the new properties. Is it going to be drought tolerant plants or is it grass?
Hi, Steve Riley with 330 Land. Forgot to introduce myself the first time around. They're the applicant. The landscaping along Newell Drive, just so everybody's aware, that's going to be irrigated with recycled water. So there's a 12-inch water line at the intersection of Malin and Rio Del Mar. We plan on extending that and then providing irrigation for all the landscaped areas along Newell, the median in Newell. So we're not planning on using drought tolerant because we're going to be using recycled water for irrigation. And then also to go back to the previous commenters, she had kind of a comment and then a question. So I wanted to point out that if you see number 4 on the landscape map above, that's actually a little pocket park. And one thing we're continuing to work with our engineering team on is to see if we can create some kind of switchback trail to get down to the Vine Trail from there. So that way, in addition to having the area around the basin, there's kind of a cut through right down the middle of the project that will allow pedestrians to get down to the Vine Trail.
Thank you, Mr. Riley.
If I could just follow up real quick. I think the comment or the question from the caller was around the front lawns of the homes. Is that going to be grass or is it going to be drought tolerant, resistant, and the backyards of the homes?
Sorry, I thought he was referring to the front along Newell Drive. No, the front yards of the homes will be drought tolerant. Those are not going to be recycled. They aren't irrigated with recycled water. What people do with their rear yard is really their business. So we're not doing the rear yard landscape plans. We're doing the front yard landscape plans, and those ones will be drought tolerant.
Will it be grass?
Pardon?
Will it be grass?
Not in the plans, no.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Riley and Mr. Randall. Hopefully that answered your questions.
Next, we have Karen Fritz. Just bear with me one moment, Ms. Fritz. All right, I've asked you to unmute yourself.
I think I raised my hand in error. But while I'm on here, happy belated birthday, Fran. Sorry I missed it.
Thank you, Ms. Fritz.
Next, we have Eric Gellerman.
Good evening. This is Eric Gellerman. I'm with the Gates and Associates. We're the landscape architecture firm on this project. I just wanted to clarify that the comment about the drought tolerance. Even though we are using recycled water for the majority of the project, the species that we're currently proposing are drought tolerant. Obviously, anything within the property of the house is kind of up to what they're doing, but we're not proposing any lawn along project frontages or anything like that. It'd be shrubs, ground covers, bunch grasses, trees, things like that. So no question. Just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Eric. Any others?
There are no other people raising their hand.
Thank you. So, commissioners, before I ask for a resolution or a motion, know that there are 2 resolutions to be voted upon. One's going to be the promontory subdivision design permit, number 1, and number 2, it's going to be the vesting tentative subdivision maps.
Well, and Vice Chair Cruz, I wanted to just take a minute to respond to a couple of the comments set from the Napa Bicycle Coalition.
Please do, Mr. Cooper, Director Cooper.
I may not have remembered all of them, but one of them was reflected connecting pedestrians from the ends of the cul-de-sacs adjacent to Newell Drive. As William He pointed out, there is a pretty big steep grade difference between the two. And so adding pedestrian connections in those locations would be really infeasible. Particularly, there would be a need to have accessibility access, and so you'd have a lot of switchbacks and the like. And so we wouldn't consider pedestrian locations there feasible. There was also a request to have separated bike lanes on Newell. Looking at the issue of bicycle access in kind of a historic perspective, I think going back far enough, there was an intent to have a separated bike lane on Newell, and then the Vine Trail Coalition proposed the location where it's now internal to the community, and so that does provided a nice, straight, protected bike lane that's internal to Watson Ranch and parallel to Newell, and that would provide bicyclists with a very safe, protected way to use as an alternative to Newell. It also, in its location, is much more usable for the people who live in Watson Ranch than way up on the west, the east side. And so there is very good pedestrian and bicycle safe routes within the project, north and south. This is a segment of Newell. It will continue north as the balance of Watson Ranch is constructed. Going east and west, there's the River to Ridge Trail, which is also part of the project that runs parallel to Rio Del Mar. And so there is, in fact, safe, protected bike access that runs parallel to the major roadways. So it might be nice to have safe, protected bike lanes on all roadways, but that starts to get kind of expensive and perhaps not an efficient use of resources, given having a really nice trail through the center of community, I think is a pretty nice way to go. And all of this has been discussed through all of the planning through Watson Ranch over many, many years and discussed. And so we kind of, I think, have landed on a plan that the community is pretty satisfied with, and we're implementing it with each of these projects.
Great. Thank you, Director Cooper. Before we go further, I'd like to officially close public comment. And before I entertain any motions, I do have a question from Commissioner Altman to staff. Commissioner Altman.
Thank you. My question is regarding the dedication of the additional parkland in lieu of the civic facilities fees. How does that fee get calculated versus what is the value of the additional land? I'm trying to get a sense of the cost-benefit analysis, financial picture on this.
Mm-hmm. I think the applicant might be best to answer this. There is a required dedication given the population estimate, and then there is a balance of property within that park area that the applicant is dedicating. And in return for that extra acreage, at least to staff's perspective, it seemed like a fair trade. But we didn't get into a financial analysis because we're just big picture visionary planners.
William, can you go back to a slide that shows the park? Yeah. I don't want to touch your.
No, it's fine.
That would be fine, yeah. So I just want to take a step and go back for a second. So I don't know if you guys can see this, but it shows the current alignment of Newell Drive. And one of the issues why we decided and we worked with staff and the city manager to kind of switch the general locations of the park is that Newell Drive had to swing even further to the north to avoid, to the south to avoid the Vallejo water transmission line. And so it started to impact what is referred to as Parcel G. So that parcel actually used to be bigger, and the Newell family is now having to dedicate more land for the right-of-way so that road can be built along with the roundabouts. And in looking at it, we thought it was probably a better approach to have the park there because it would be more accessible to the existing community of Vintage Ranch. And there already is a park internal to Watson Ranch, so we thought it was kind of a gateway into the project. It would be used by people outside of Watson Ranch. And in the specific plan amendments that you guys see, there's also plans to have I think it's about a 2-acre community facility building there. And so when we talked to city attorney and Jason Hawley, suggested, hey, maybe a better approach is that we donate and dedicate that land, which would be over and above what our parkland requirement would be. And I think it's like 2.5 acres more than that. And in exchange for 2.5 acres of land, we're getting about $400,000 of fee credit. So I would say if we were doing the math, we're probably getting a bad deal, and you guys should keep, negotiating for more.
Thank you. I
You're
appreciate it.
Thank you for that. Commissioners, any other questions or comments? No? Okay, again, I'm asking for a motion for the first resolution, which of course will be the Promontory Subdivision Design Permit.
I'm going to give it a shot. Here we go. I'm going to make a motion for approval of a resolution on the Planning Commission of the City of American Canyon, California, approving a design permit for development of a 216 single-family homes and 54 junior accessory dwelling units on a 56.94 acre site in the Watson Ranch Specific Plan Area, APN 059-030-007, file number PL 22-0035.
Commissioner Goff, if you wouldn't mind making a little change to your motion to add the phrase "with revised conditions proposed by staff."
With the revised conditions proposed by staff.
Thank you.
We doing one at a time, or we doing both? We doing one at a time or both?
Yes, one at a time.
One at a time, okay. Second?
I will second that motion.
Nicole, roll call, please.
Yes, Commissioner Goff,
Aye.
Commissioner Altman,
Aye.
Commissioner Mohammed,
Aye.
Chair Malaria is absent, Vice Chair Cruz.
Aye. Okay, thank you for that. Going on to the second resolution, which will be in regards to the vesting tentative subdivision map.
I would like to make a motion for approval of a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of American Canyon, California, recommending the City Council of the City of American Canyon, California, approve a vesting tentative subdivision map for development of a 216 single-family residential lots and 54 junior accessory dwelling units on a 56.94 acre site in the Watson Ranch Specific Plan Area, APN 059-030-007, file number PL 22-0034.
I second.
I'm sorry, with revised conditions.
Nicole, roll call, please.
Yes, Commissioner Goff,
Aye.
Commissioner Altman,
Aye.
Commissioner Mohammed,
Aye.
Chair Malaria is absent, Vice Chair Cruz.
Aye. Okay, thank you, everybody. That concludes our public hearings. So moving on to the next agendized item is management and staff oral reports. I'd like to introduce Director Cooper for our management report. Director Cooper.
All right. Thank you, Vice Chair Cruz and Planning Commission and members of the public who I'm sure would like to stay and hear about this. I wanted to just first thank William He and also in particular Edison Bisnar with Public Works Group. The two of them really work hand in hand along with other departments, and there has been a tremendous amount of work, as you've seen, come to your commission that is really thanks to the very hard day-to-day work that Edison and William put towards these. So I just wanted to just kind of recognize and thank for such great work in getting all of this to you. Thank you. And more to come if you take a look at the active project list. So some of the more notable events happening on the second page with the Crawford Way residential project. We recently had a resubmittal for that project. And so that's being reviewed right now. I think it's getting close to being ready for public hearing time. It's 4 acres north of the Open Door Church at Crawford and Highway 29. It is. It is. It's probably, if one had to draw an analogy to what is the closest property to being a quality of San Francisco, that would be it. Because if you think about it, it's across the street from a major transit route to the Vallejo Ferry and the BART. The library, post office, services, restaurants, grocery stores, religious facilities. It's within walking distance to everything anyone could possibly need. Moving on, item 12 on the bottom of that, we have the Napa Junction mini storage permit. That one I think is getting close to being thawed from being on hold. I have an appointment to talk to Mr. Hess on Monday about this. The Watson Ranch on the following page 3, specific plan amendment, that will be brought up to the City Council on August 15th, along with your 2 items that you recommended tonight. So that'll be a very big meeting. We're all looking forward to, of course, National Night Out on August 1st, which falls on a council meeting night. On the residences at Napa Junction, there's been a notice of preparation for the environmental impact report has been issued, so that's a nice milestone. That's an opportunity for mostly public agencies, but also the public at large to comment on issues that should be reviewed and considered during preparing the environmental impact report. We have quite a few major building and grading permits happening. I don't really have any special updates other than everything is being built as we speak, practically. On the city-initiated projects, coming up at your next meeting, I'll be bringing 2 items. The first one is the public hearing and notice sign notification ordinance. This is a workshop that the Planning Commission had with the council back in October, where we discussed increasing the public radius notification for letters from 300 feet to 500 feet. That's a municipal code amendment. And then also noticing properties with signs that's informative. And that would be a policy adopted by resolution. So we'll be talking about that at your next meeting. The next item, the comprehensive general plan, a component to that is vehicle miles traveled policy. So it's going to be discussed. It's a very important component that'll be useful for the general plan. And so we'll be bringing that to you. And so bring your dweeb on. It'll be a policy discussion. We also have back from our consultants we did red lines on all the general plan elements. So I just got that back, and I'm just quality controlling it. We'll start laying those out and bringing those for discussion, so we can discuss that. And the administrative draft environmental impact report, we're just wrapping up our internal review for that. So we'll be starting a process. So that whole general plan update will be gearing up in the latter half of this year. Of course, since your last Planning Commission meeting, we received certification for the housing element from State Department of Housing and Community Development, so we're really proud of that. And so glad to see that taken care of. And we'll be bringing on, there's a host of implementation actions that we're required to update and modernize over the course of the next 8 years. And so we'll be bringing those to you according to the schedule in the housing element. And accessory dwelling units is rates highly as a goal. It is something that HCD would like cities to do. And what's different about the housing element this time than last is they have performance standards where they require the city to commit to delivering certain numbers of ADUs and families that are helped and so and so and so and so. So this last project, should it go forward as proposed, will definitely help with our statistics and demonstrating to HCD how hard we are at working at fulfilling the state objectives. Let's see. The Paoli Watson Lane annexation, that one is, of course, a very important project, and we're wrapping up response to comments to the environmental impact report, and hopefully we'll be able to bring the project to the Planning Commission either August, maybe September. Certainly it's coming up in your very near future. And that's pretty much my update, unless you have any questions.
No questions. Thank you, Director Cooper. Last item would be commissioner items. Are there any items from the commissioners? If not, I do. I was told, little birdie told me, tomorrow is somebody's birthday. Commissioner Altman. Happy birthday.
Not quite. Not too far off, but not quite. I'm going to perpetuate that, man.
Yes, and I think when the meeting closes, Nicole has prepared something special.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the time is 8:10, meeting adjourned.